What if I told you that one phone call could completely change the trajectory of a franchise's season? That one decision at the trade deadline could be the difference between a playoff run and watching January football from home? Well, Bears Nation, we're living in that exact moment right now. And what I'm about to share with you is going to have you on the edge of your seat. Welcome to Bears News Fan Report, your go-to source for all the latest updates, insider rumors, and deep analysis on our beloved Chicago Bears. I'm bringing you breaking news that's going to impact how we see the rest of this season. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around until the end, because the way this story unfolds is absolutely crucial for understanding where this team is headed. Let me set the stage for you. Week 9. We're watching our Bears battle it out, sitting at a respectable record. Playoff hopes very much alive, and then disaster strikes. Dayo Odeyingbo goes down with a season-ending Achilles injury. In that instant, everything changes. Our defensive line depth takes a massive hit, and suddenly, Ryan Poles and the front office have a critical decision to make. Do we stand pat and trust what we have in the building, or do we make a move to bolster our pass rush for what could be a legitimate postseason push? Now, here's where things get interesting, and I mean really interesting. The rumor mill starts churning immediately after Odeyingbo's injury. Social media explodes with speculation, insider reports start dropping, and one name keeps coming up over and over again. A name that would make any defensive coordinator's eyes light up. A proven pass rusher with elite production, someone who could instantly upgrade our ability to get after the quarterback. But before I reveal who we're talking about and what actually went down, you need to understand the context of where the Bears are right now as an organization. We're at 5-3, folks. Let that sink in. This isn't some rebuilding season where we're just trying to develop young talent and see what we have. This is a team with legitimate playoff aspirations. Caleb Williams is showing real progress under the new regime. Our rookie tight end Colston Loveland and running back Kyle Monangai just had breakout performances in Week 9. The offense is starting to click. The defense has been solid, and suddenly, we're in a position where the right move could push us over the top. This is the kind of situation where general managers earn their paychecks, where one bold decision can define an entire season. Ryan Poles has built a reputation for being active at the trade deadline. He's not afraid to make moves, to be aggressive when he sees an opportunity. And with a gaping hole at defensive end after losing Odeyingbo, everyone expected him to be working the phones hard. The question wasn't if he'd make a move, but rather how big of a splash he'd be willing to make. And that's where our story takes a fascinating turn. On November 2nd, Dan Graziano from ESPN published a report that sent shockwaves through Bears Nation. He connected Chicago to Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, if you know anything about the NFL pass rush landscape, you know that Hendrickson is the real deal. This is a guy who consistently gets to the quarterback, a proven veteran who could walk into any defensive scheme and make an immediate impact. The thought of adding someone of his caliber to our defensive line was tantalizing, to say the least. But here's where the complications start piling up, and this is crucial to understanding what ultimately happened. The Bengals weren't just going to give Hendrickson away. They wanted a first-round pick. A first-round pick for a player over 30 years old with a projected market value of $133 million. And here's the kicker. He's not signed beyond this season. So we're talking about potentially giving up premium draft capital for what amounts to a 2-month rental. That's a massive ask. And it put Poles in a really difficult position. Think about it from the front office perspective. Yes, we're 5-3 and in playoff contention. Yes, we need help at defensive end. But are we one player away from being Super Bowl contenders? Is it worth mortgaging future assets for a short-term upgrade? These are the questions that keep G-Miz up at night, especially when you're trying to build something sustainable with a young quarterback like Caleb Williams. Graziano himself acknowledged this complexity in his report, noting that while Chicago should at least inquire about Hendrickson's availability, the Bears might still have the feel of a rebuilding team long-term. Now here's where the plot thickens even more. Coach Ben Johnson has made it crystal clear that he has no interest in a slow build. He wants to win now. He wants to compete now. And that aggressive mentality has been refreshing for a fan base that's endured too many rebuilding years. The standings back up that approach. At 5-3, we're right in the thick of the NFC playoff race. So there's this tension between being smart about the long-term future and seizing the opportunity that's right in front of us. The Bears community was buzzing with anticipation. Would Poles pull the trigger on Hendrickson? Would he find another big-name edge rusher? The trade deadline was approaching fast, and everyone was glued to their phones waiting for breaking news. And then, on Tuesday, Jay Glazer from Fox Sports dropped a bomb that changed the entire narrative. A fan asked him on social media if Chicago will be active at the deadline, and his response was telling. He confirmed that yes, the Bears would be active, but he threw cold water on the idea of any splashy moves. Glazer explained that there just aren't those level of players being shopped unless teams are willing to part with a huge haul. And the fact that many of these players have contracts expiring after this season complicates things significantly. His exact words were, "I don't see anything splashy." That statement essentially confirmed what many of us suspected. The Trey Hendrickson dream was just that, a dream. The price was too high, the circumstances too complicated, and Poles wasn't going to mortgage the future for a 2-month rental, no matter how talented the player. But here's what I love about Ryan Poles, and this is where the story reaches its climax. Just because he wasn't going to make a splashy move doesn't mean he was going to sit on his hands and do nothing. Later that same Tuesday, news broke that sent a different kind of ripple through the Bears community. Adam Schefter reported that the Browns were sending defensive end Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and a 7th-round pick to the Chicago Bears in exchange for a 6th-round pick. This was the move. Not the blockbuster everyone was hoping for, but a calculated, smart addition that addresses our need without breaking the bank or sacrificing premium assets. Let me tell you about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, because this is actually a really intriguing acquisition when you dig into the detail. He was a 1st-round pick by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in 2021. So we're talking about a player who at one point was viewed as a premium talent with 1st-round pedigree. Things didn't work out in Tampa, which happens, but he still managed to rack up 15 sacks during his time there. That's not insignificant production. At 26 years old, he's entering his prime years as a pass rusher, and he signed a 1-year deal with Cleveland worth $4.75 million, which tells you he's motivated to prove himself and earn a bigger contract. Now, here's the interesting part about his situation in Cleveland. He appeared in all 8 games for them this season, but he only played 31 defensive snaps total. That's barely any playing time at all. So we're getting a player who's fresh, who hasn't been worn down by a heavy workload, and who's presumably hungry for an opportunity to get on the field and show what he can do. The trade itself is incredibly low risk. We're essentially swapping late-round picks and moving up 1 spot, which is almost nothing in terms of draft capital. This is the kind of move that exemplifies smart roster management. Instead of panicking and overpaying for a big name, Poles identified a player with talent and upside who's available at a reasonable price. Tryon-Shoyinka gets a fresh start with a team that will actually give him playing time. And we get a potential solution to our defensive end situation without sacrificing the assets we need to continue building this roster for the long haul. It might not be the headline-grabbing move that gets everyone excited, but it's the kind of shrewd transaction that winning organizations make consistently. Let's talk about what this means for the stretch run. We've got the New York Giants coming up next week, and as of Tuesday, we're favored by 3.5 points. That's a winnable game, and it's the kind of game where Tryon-Shoyinka could get significant snaps and start making an impact immediately. Our defense has been solid overall, but adding another body to the edge rush role gives us more flexibility, keeps guys fresh, and gives the coaching staff more options when game planning for different opponents. The bigger picture here is that we're heading into the second half of the season with a winning record and realistic playoff hopes. Caleb Williams continues to develop and show the kind of promise that made him the #1 overall pick. Our young offensive weapons are starting to emerge. The defense is playing well enough to keep us in games. And now with Tryon-Shoyinka added to the mix, we've addressed our most pressing need without mortgaging the future. That's a win in my book. I know some fans might be disappointed that we didn't land Trey Hendrickson or another big-name player. I get it. The allure of adding a proven star is always exciting. But when you really break down the situation, the cost was too high and the long-term implications too risky. Poles made the smart play here, staying active and addressing the need while maintaining the flexibility to continue building this roster through the draft and future free agents. That's the kind of disciplined decision-making that builds sustainable success in this league. So here's my analysis of the entire situation. The Trey Hendrickson pursuit was real, the interest was genuine, but the price point made it a non-starter. Rather than panic or make a desperate move, Poles found a creative solution that brings in a young player with talent and upside at minimal cost. Tryon-Shoyinka might not be a household name, but he's got the pedigree and the physical tools to contribute. Sometimes the best moves are the ones that don't make the biggest headline, but fill a need and maintain organizational flexibility. Now I want to hear from you, Bears. What do you think about this move? Are you satisfied with bringing in Tryon-Shoyinka, or were you hoping for a bigger splash? Do you agree with Poles' approach of being conservative with our draft capital, or should we have been more aggressive in pursuing someone like Hendrickson? How do you see the rest of the season playing out with our current roster? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I love hearing different perspectives from this community. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Here at Bears News Fan Report, I'm bringing you the latest news, the deepest analysis, and the insider information you need to stay on top of everything happening with our Chicago Bears. We're in this together, and I'm committed to keeping you informed every step of the way. Let's finish this season strong and show the league what Bears football is all about. Bear down!